Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Let's continue. So, we're kind of in the middle of a quest, although it does kind of feel like the quests are just one long storyline, as it were. We met this new character named Plastic who seems to be kind of a literalist, autistic uh, person, hacker girl. Although Also, she kind of showed some level of incompetence also in that she had a gun programmed to shoot intruders and she couldn't shut it down without blowing the whole thing up. Kind of going for more of a Tiny Tina vibe, um, which is not a good um, way to introduce yourself, certainly when we're giving the most important data that we were able to steal. Let's see if the hair physics are on the shadows as much as the reflections. Yes, they are. Yeah, there is a lot of physics happening. Not a ton, not as much as you could do, but there is a lot that's happening on your character, regardless of whether you actually see the character or not. Like you can see the hair bobs back and forth, and I imagine that the hair would just not show if you were going to make a recording of yourself and play online with people that way, if there was anybody online. Um, and if it were a case where you actually could jump into other people's games, you'd almost have to assume that everybody else you see is going to be just another Faith clone. Um, so, as it turns out, Allcom wasn't enough. We hacked Allcom, which is kind of like the telephone internet service. It seems like it's just radio waves floating in the air completely. Um, we hacked that, but that was enough. We need the full power of a grid node in order to find out what's on that drive. The grid nodes are gigantic data nexuses spread across the city. The essential parts of the grid, and hacking into them is a daunting prospect, but if you're successful, there might also be valuable information made available to your beat link. So it's questionable as just how many grid nodes actually exist. It is the thing that's going to let you fast travel. It's also a possibility that we hack this grid node in a couple more places in this area, and we might end up leaving Glass City completely. Wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened. Oh, and I guess the most important thing to mention. Interesting, I was not expecting to be able to climb to the top using computer parts. And you can see immediately it does not work for these types of computers. It only works for these yellow wired, um, what I would assume here. It, fall backwards and hurt ourselves. Uh, these are, I guess, the equivalent of server racks with uh, wires coming out from the back of the sides of server racks and into the front of what you call patch panels. Um, I often question the value in patch panels in server rack configurations. It's based around an idea that you would be removing and replacing equipment far more often than you really, I think, do for most cases. And uh, it creates this situation where you have to use a punch down tool and have wires with connections.
Noah,
So you're
is
adding
Icarus connected to a
extra
grid node?
connectors.
Not to my knowledge. You'll have one on him if you make it, and you better make it, or I'll...
Or what? She's quite far from you inside a completely different building.
Plastic, whatever. Just be safe, Faith.
Yeah, Plastic seems like she's being played as a much younger character than she physically looks. Seems like there's some security terminals, lasers that we shouldn't cross, which may mean I needed to bring up the ability to um, curl my toes. Like, did I hit something there? Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think it is probably a smarter move in a lot of cases to just have wires and server racks come directly from their connection into directly a switch. Because what happens, either a switch or a router, what happens almost all the time is that people are spending extra money on server racks that are already probably millions of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, a minimum, uh, to have a wire that hits a patch panel that then is then using a second wire, and both ends of that wire have a couple extra connectors that then go into a switch. Um, and I just don't know if it's really worth it that much, because you're not gonna. I just don't think people realistically switch out switches that often without also having to potentially change the wires. Like, I'm sure there's a massive number of server racks, and I don't know why I'm talking about any of this, but it is something I guess to talk about as you're doing this platforming puzzling. Uh, like, I would imagine there's quite a lot of servers out there that are running Cat 5 and never for a second would have even considered running Cat 5e or Cat 6, Cat 5 being Category 5 cords. I think anything below Category 5 really wouldn't be an Ethernet cord, so at that point you would have had to upgrade to Cat 5. Um, and I believe there's even like a Cat 6 E or S or something standard even now. And I bet there's a lot of servers that never upgraded any of those. And they only would start to even potentially think about upgrading those if they had moved over to fiber optic. Like, and once you move over to fiber optic, then there are some slight limitations on how much you can bend a cord. Now what's crazy here is if this turns into a situation where I'm supposed to hit all of these laser beams, because I don't imagine.
Faith, Kruger's Sec is responding to some sort of activity near the Bauble Mall. General call. I don't think it's you, but be prepared for anything.
Yeah, we know that there's somebody else out here doing something. Some kind of corporate espionage. Yeah, there's nothing to do here, though. So, like, I can't climb up to this. I see a grapple point. Maybe that's a grapple point, or maybe that's just where you're supposed to go. If anything, they seemingly just put that there so that you could see that you're actually supposed to go this way. You're pretty safe at this point to install in a server, and I'll wrap up this probably incredibly boring conversation. Installing fiber at this point is probably pretty safe, I would say. I don't think you're highly likely to need to potentially replace that fiber, if you did install fiber for a decent amount of time. What is really happening, I think, as far as network interface connections, or NICs is what they're called, is more of a case of, with the network cards, the NICs, having to pretty much connect to either a computer through PCI Express or through a special chip that is still going to be around the same speeds and bandwidths of PCI Express. There's really not enough bandwidth to get past 100 gigabits per second. So you're hitting a point where you could get maybe 4 or 5 100 gigabits per second backbone connections is what they're called, to connect one switch that splits up all that bandwidth into what you would more likely use, which is just 1 gigabit per second Cat 6 Ethernet cords. Or you would you can maybe get 5 of them and that's it, and then you just have to buy another piece of equipment. And that's always been the problem with servers and computers and server racks. You can look here, that this is a fairly accurate representation of what a future computer would look like, assuming it's not going to a level of quantum technology. And even if it is going to a level of quantum technology, which is the next step above transistor technology that we're using now, this is not incredibly unbelievable. But to get the power, to get the bandwidth, you just have to add more components, make it bigger, and that's where you get server racks from. Otherwise, they're incredibly boring. Also, frankly, incredibly complicated and overly complicated to configure and maintain. They are certainly not a small home or office router type setup where you can just set a few settings and let everything else be at default. I wonder if we're going to see these ladders of networks be a thing outside of this area, or if this is only going to be when you're in this region, when you're doing these few missions. I'd be fine with kind of not seeing them, because it's not like yellow is the right color. These should have been red. They should have been bright glowing red runner vision ladders, and you can see runner vision has been off this whole time. I forgot to roll. And then you have just like this yellow pointing you kind of nowhere. And we finally get out of that area and runner vision comes back. It almost feels like they know the points where runner vision does not really work, because there's just multiple paths. And so instead of fixing the runner vision as a automated breadcrumb area to point you in the right direction and make it just pick a path, they seem to intentionally have just shut it off in those regions as a cheap fix. The weird thing here is we still don't really know what the grid link looks like. We were kind of assuming it was this, but then you have this odd terminal connection here. Last time we activated this called in a bunch of Kruger sect people, and we nearly died from all the difficulty spike of this. So hopefully, if we have to fight new people, this is going to be easier.
And done.
That's it?
What did you expect? You can leave now. There's a service elevator nearby.
Well, they did that nicely, and it gave us a achievement. Treat us fairly nice there. Instead of making us fight people. I almost wonder if the other person making a disturbance knows what you're up to and is actively trying to help you by creating conflict somewhere else and pulling the security away. I wonder if we're going to find out that this other person is not some spy, but is actually
In the elevator.
your sister.
On my way down.
Now watch how her hair just glitches. It's just jumping down and up. So the elevators are actually physically going up and down for some reason, which is about the worst way in a video game to program an elevator. Why not simply just show a video of the world going up and down and keep you in the same place and teleporting you at a second? That's kind of one of those examples of trying to make a video game act like the real world is going to cause you more trouble than it's worth, and finding a cheat to optimize is the smarter move. Like, it would have made so much more sense, particularly in a multiplayer game, to have the elevator just be a teleportation portal. You walk through it, you're immediately teleported down here, you're shown a video like it's going down, and then once it's loaded, this door opens. That lets the elevator reset itself immediately back to the top if there's another player in a multiplayer game that wants to use it, instead of them having to wait for the elevator to actually move all the way back up, or wait for the elevator to go actually all the way down. And most gamers do not care about things like that. This is now a blue flag. We're seeing a lot of different flags, and it definitely feels like there's this color-coded section based on what corporation they owns what area. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this spy is actually your sister. Maybe it's your sister and a spy. We know Faith has a sister. We've seen no mention of her so far. We kind of knew Faith had a sister by this point, I think, in the first game. Although they also kind of introduce her as a surprise, and it just feels weird that they did that.
Big explosion over here.
So, yeah, big surprise there. Actual terrorism versus just being a scofflaw running things.
Feel like the bubble mall just blew up. Damn, that explosion has Krista going nuts. Faith, you should clear out and find shelter for a while.
She can come here. Kuma said it's okay.
Thanks, Plastic. I appreciate it. Just until this thing blows over.
Yeah. So it's put you in kind of a state where there's ash everywhere, and I imagine Krugerset is now is really not the time to be stealing things. Yeah. And they want me to go right back up there. Or maybe not. Maybe they just want me to work my way around. Nope. They definitely want me to come back here and not fall in the hole. So I'm supposed to be running here, but you can see I'm... The Krugersec are just calling out, saying, go this way. I found them. And you just don't have time to run. So you gotta just find a direction you want to go and pick it and hope that that's good enough. There's one of those bags. Is this a door we can open? No. In a lot of ways, this is what I was expecting most of the sequences would be. And I was kind of expecting them to be more kind of focused in the way they were designed, that there would be actual paths and actual smart ways in which to run instead of just awkwardly doing my pathetic parkouring. So do we want to go this way? And as it is, I imagine the checkpoints are going to be fairly generous here, so it's not like they're going to start you back at the race and make you start again, whereas I feel like the first Mirror's Edge game totally would have done that. I don't think I can make that jump. This might just be a case where there are places where you can't make some jumps. Or it might just be a case that you have to jump at a very cautious timing. Yeah, that is pretty much the only way you could have reached this area. So they wanted you to do that jump eventually.
I'm done with the decryption.
So, what's on there?
It's the entire blueprint.
Yeah, we
for
can
reflection.
control the camera.
Everything. And it's way too complex to be just an upgraded grid link or something.
Okay.
They're not showing really anything on the
Clone
screen.
Sure.
Now they are scripting the camera, but they're doing a bad job about it. Moving away from focusing plastic on the screen.
We'll come back to the lair and we'll figure out how to proceed. Krugersec will be trigger happy for a while, so keep a low profile. And thanks for the help, Plastic.
Can I keep the drive? I want to study the blueprint.
You can keep it for now. See you soon, Faith.
You almost would have done better if Plastic took off her hair, as it were, and there was like a computer interface there under it. Hacking grenades. Hacking grid nodes unlocks the ability to fast travel. Map has been updated. Now we have a Metagrid Talk to Plastic quest. And I'm getting a lot of Origin achievement unlock pop-ups. Yeah, map-wise, let's see, we've got something new here. Grid node downtown. So, if we were going to fast travel, we now would have to find that grid node and hack it. Probably the same for this area. Maybe even for this area. It kind of seems like the only place you might be able to fast travel is here and here. She has this whole side mission, so we might as well do the side mission, even though we are avoiding a lot of the other side missions. The game said it was going to take her a month to decrypt the code without the grid, It seemed to have only taken her a few seconds. Otherwise,
I'm bored. I fiddled around with the
this is an odd camera
environmental
angle.
protocols for a while, but they shut down the whole system after the blizzard.
Would just make more sense to do
That's
this.
an idea. You can help me access the metagrid.
The what?
The metagrid. It's part of the grid, but only accessible by corporate families. Consists of information and communication too sensitive to risk propagation on the regular grid.
How do we access it?
I mapped out geolocational weaknesses in the metagrid encryption. If you could tap into those nexus points, I could assemble them to get full access.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Just go to the locations I've marked for you and I'll handle the rest. Once you reach the first point, their safety protocols will race to shut you out. You need to reach all the points before that happens.
Okay, I got it.
So this is just a dash by a different name, except for perhaps, unlike a dash, this potentially requires you to actually hit specific spots, where a regular dash just requires you to get from point A to point B. Is there a great way down? I don't know if there really is. Is there something over here to grab? Yes, there is. So we might as well grab it. Any little bit of XP we can get is helpful. See, this is an oddly different way than this way. There's like 2 locations. Maybe this wall was closed before. I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the case. We'll try this, but I could definitely see it not going particularly well, because I could definitely imagine this turning into a bit of a hassle. Yeah. Kind of feels like the runner's vision should give you a general idea or general line as far as how high you can climb, because you do run into situations where something like this just happens a little too often. You run up against a wall and then you just run out of space. So I imagine if you play the game enough, you'd eventually figure it out yourself, but it would be nice for some visual feedback. Right. Okay. And after that whole mall being blown up, let's ask that question. Can we see the mall on the map? And if we did see the mall on the map, was it ever actually a location where we were going to end up going and interacting? Let's see. I feel like we were at Allcom, or a grid location at Allcom. There should have been a grid location marked somewhere around here, but it's not. Yeah. My guess is we would have been somewhere around this general area, and that the mall would have been somewhere around maybe this general area, or maybe this general area. Definitely feels like it could be just a place we were never actually going to visit. The problem with this is you're going to also potentially really struggle here. Like, if this does become majorly difficult raise. You have to find the right spot in which you can use this grapple gun. Seemingly this is not the right spot, not in line with the rope. So I knew there was going to be a point where you could use this grapple, and yet the game is not making it easy on me. I need to get the level ups as much as possible. At least I feel the need to get the level ups as much as possible so that as soon as I can get the stamina up, I can make use of that. And get through the fights a little bit easier.
Well, the girls are asleep. Can't have me reading that damn story 5 times.
Did you talk to Rebecca?
Yeah, she was kind of upset with me.
Isn't she always? What was it this time?
He's worried about the rally. Apparently, a friend of his at Kruger Sec told him they're planning a massive presence.
Why? Should we cancel?
No, we can't. Look, if we let them scare us, we'll never accomplish anything. Enough about that. I'll sort things out between Noah and Rebecca later. That's all we're doing.
Good. But I'm not sure I can keep it hidden from my lead much longer.
I think that's our parents. Or Faith's parents. Already stole that one. It feels like these should have exploded more when you steal the chips. Like, it's way too easy to come from this side and see nothing. That there should be either glowingness to them to catch your attention in general, or that they should be burnt out and exploded otherwise. Okay. We're doing this again?
Remember, once you activate the first point, the firewall will try to shut you out. And that's bad. You just have to be faster than they are.
Yeah, there's still a real problem here as far as just engaging in these conflicts. Like, I don't see a way you particularly avoid these conflicts. Like, maybe they were more from the thought that you would sneak around and stealth. A stealth mechanic here definitely would help. Yep.
What do we got?
Let's see. And then you end up just having to run at these guys. And I have just like no idea why you would set up and start a conflict here where I'm gonna have to run and try to avoid this whole area, to then want to start another challenge. It's like, is that a runner? I'm not seeing so many of the like rooftop dwellers anymore in this region. Yeah, we'll get this document. Yeah, this is just straight up a rooftop dweller. Alright, well, let's see if we can use this to get a little bit further away. Yeah, as an open world game, it is definitely lacking some of this level design. Like there's really no getting around that. There's doors that don't open, there's paths that are kind of non-existent. As soon as you start to get slightly away from that what expected path, okay, but that doesn't that just bring the helicopters more on top of me? And isn't that what this bigger circle is all about? Like, I need to find a general area where the helicopters can't see me, and I can like get out of this circle of influence. And that way doesn't seem like that takes me in the right direction. This is interesting. You can jump or you can slide. Alright, well. And this really does just feel like you can stay in this state forever. Alright, finally.
Control to all units. She's gone. Support the search.
Well, we are getting through a whole area that feels like something. We have to finish Benefactor before we can get improved attack. So it probably is worth it. Like, I still don't think we're really needing the coil. But if we finish Benefactor, getting extended slide might be useful. And seemingly nothing else can be unlocked until you do Benefactor or Sanctuary, so might as well just unlock it now. I half expect this. Why would you even have a door like this? Just so you could get out on a balcony and smoke? Yeah. Alright, well, let's try this. Like, that is what they, I think, planned for us to do. Is to hit something like this. Let's see. Well, it definitely seems like it thinks I can run across the wall, and by running across the wall I can make a jump, but I don't feel like that's the case. If these doors weren't the kind of doors you would use to kick in something, I would assume that you would have come in on this way and then used all these doors to get up this way, because that makes a lot more sense. And Now I can make that wall run, of course. Yeah. On one hand, you would have called that control point unnecessary extra gameplay you were forced into. On the other hand, this game does not feel like it's going to be that long, so it's probably fairly necessary for the game to try and force you to play extra sections. It didn't really teach me anything, though, as far as the region. It's not like I'm now 5% more familiar with the land. I might be about 2% more familiar with the area, and that's it. Plus, it intends to tap into the metagrid, closed off network reserved for conglomerate elite, the conglomerate elite. There are certain weakened geolocational data points that she can use to hack into the network, similar to grid leaks, but she will need your help. You need to access every data point within a given area. Plastic will tap into them through you, but once she starts, the race is on to finish before the firewall shuts everything down. If that happens, you have to start all over again. You'd almost expect Plastic to have a whole bunch of, like, plastic surgery or something. Okay. Is this it? Then? We look around here. They're not marked on the map. Okay.
The safety protocol just activated. Go get the others, Faith. Quickly. Do it in good faith. Only a few left to go, and I'll have access.
Now, do I have to get them all? Or can I miss a few? I feel like you probably can't miss a few. And I feel like I held X there, but maybe I didn't hold X fast enough. No, there's reflections here, and it would probably be beneficial if these didn't reflect, because they really have set you up.
Activated. Go get the others, Faith. Quickly. Do it in good faith. Only a few left to go, and I'll have access.
Let's see.
That's it. You did it. Plenty of juicy.
I did it, but I died in the process. But take the win. I assume that counted. Of course, that cut off the dialogue that was playing at that point. Think you probably just want to do this fragile delivery. And let's see if we could pull that off. Because, like, the main story now would be to go back and do Benefactor. Or go back and do the Birdman quest. What would be fairly annoying is if we found out that the post-game experience of running around and trying to do these quests is like way more difficult than the current game experience, where it's fairly calm. There's just so many grid leaks and so many things. Yeah, once we get the item that just shows us where grid leaks are, there's, I think, gonna be such a better experience. But it might also be a case that there isn't really a full need to collect everything, or even a full way to collect everything. It might be that we are really just, well, once again, we get the grid leak and then die. It might be that these data chips are just extra bits of XP for players that might struggle. I guess I should have done this instead. It may very well be a case that, and it is so easy to fall off these edges. Alright. Slide this way. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like we are that low on. I'll take this, and this may put me in a weird position. Yeah. It doesn't just feel like we're that low on collectibles or low on XP. So he's saying Black November has claimed responsibility for that bombing. I question if that's true. This might very well be a false flag operation by Kruger Security. Okay.
I have a job for you.
Let's try this.
I need this package delivered, and I need it intact. If the container breaks and the cooling fails, I can't be held responsible. And this is the last thing I do for her. She will understand that. Now, officer.
Okay. So we have 136 seconds to get, I think, over there. We want to be fairly safe here. Now, we have not figured out what the acceptable level of damage one can take is. If it is, for instance, you can't actually lose a heart, but you can trip and stumble as much as you want, that's fairly easy. If it's you can't trip and stumble at all, that's fairly hard. Let's see. I don't think I'm on the right path. We may very well find that as soon as you get off the right path, it becomes impossible to accomplish some of these deliveries. It definitely feels like the odds of you doing a delivery here and it running you into conflict with
What have you done? I'll never get her off my back.
Let's try that again. And let's go reckless with it. Like, reckless still slows you down, certainly, but reckless also will tell us.
This package delivered, and I need it intact. If the container breaks and the cooling fails, I can't be held responsible.
We have no grapple point. Okay. So you get 3 falls, it seems. Okay, good to know.
What have you done?
Okay. So we don't have to do that. We don't have to reset after just one fall. You get three breaks. It seems like that's not too hard. But it would be pretty hard if you didn't have the roll ability or you didn't have the skill to use the roll ability. Like, I question if there's a better way here. And potentially avoiding that would have been better. This definitely feels like this is the way they want you to go from this point. And then this way. And then this way. You want to probably jump as much as possible that way. And then that does make it feel like this is probably your best move. And jumping up these poles doesn't feel like it really saves you a lot of time. Alright, we've probably failed at that point. We've already stolen that. Said to hold X to reset. I guess I could have run up here.
What have you done? Now I'll never get...
I really thought the grappling rope would be the time saver on things like this. But honestly, it feels very much like let's see what happens if we just run. Nope, you have to jump on these, so you might as well try and jump on them as fast as possible. If I tried to go higher on this ladder spot, would that have helped me? Yeah. Unless there was some kind of wall run trick. You might save a second or two. If you... Where is that? That's the weird part, is that it looks like you're just supposed to jump straight there. Once again, you have that Sonic problem of, unless you know where you're going, you'll never figure out. Okay. It kind of would make more sense if there was some just like completely separate rule or route. Not rule. Yeah, all of a sudden this one wants me to go a different way. So it definitely feels like this was the right route, and I was either too far to the right every time, and the Path Runner's Vision AI is just so poorly made that it will allow for those kinds of mistakes. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going though. Like, are we a second away?
Now I'll never get her off my back.
Yeah, are we a second away or are we 10 seconds away from where we're supposed to be? Is it completely impossible to do something like this? This is finger blistering frustrating. Like, you could start this way and use that as a run-up feature. Nope, can't go that way. I don't think it's a case that the world is shifting or changing either. That would be kind of interesting if they created a world that constantly shifted and changed. Like, in fact, for a dystopian society with such a high level of technology, that would be really cool. Okay. Oh, you still are going this way. It's at this point here where you have the split. And it's probably slower to jump to run around. It's probably slower to jump over things than it is to just run around things. And again, I'm just running in what I think is a different path. But there are these bridges, and these bridges are clearly the choke points. Four seconds.
What have you done? Now I'll never get her off my back.
Yeah, that's her. But then I would have to fast travel back to that delivery quest. To do that. Like, you can't just go back and find it and try and do it. I don't even know where it was. Yeah, I don't even know how I would get to that location to do that quest. And the other one just kind of seems like it's done. Right. So let's ask the question here as this map turns around. Can we fast travel to this? No. Could we fast travel to this? Yes. And I've added potentially 20-30 minutes of gameplay here by trying to do that running quest to prove that at my current skill level, you really can't do it.
Plastic, you get it.
Of course I get it.
Okay. I think we're back to a point where you can't go into any other part of the safe house until this next cutscene plays out and we have the next story happen. I really do feel like there should just be some new shoes that make you run faster. Even if it doesn't actually make you run faster in the game, even if it just gave you more time. Like, there's no, like, difficulty settings here. Because they wanted it to be an online game when really it probably shouldn't have been an online game and probably should have had difficulty settings. It might very well turn into a case where we run into a difficulty spike and just trying to do dashes becomes incredibly difficult and impossible. I guess we will, if we get the grids, be able to teleport to places, but maybe not places where you haven't done the quest, or maybe places where you have done the quest. No, I don't think we did this memento. So, whereas I think we did do this, and we did do this and get 1 star. So, I've probably played this terribly, come to think of it. I probably should, going forward, try to do a dash and get at least 1 star on a dash. That way, I have a teleportation option there. I know I didn't do these dashes though, so I don't know why some dashes are yellow and then some dashes are blue. It seems weird. Then you have hackable billboards. It might be that some of these quests are just not doable now, and that we had to have done them at a specific time. Yeah, it does feel like we may very well end up only having to hack 2 or 3 grids, 2 or 3 grid nodes. We're definitely getting into this section. There's just a whole bunch of construction stuff that it would be a huge mistake to not run around and play on that. And I would almost assume that you would get into this section too, although this might be kind of an end game area, or this might just have been the beginning of the game. It's questionable though when you get to these further outskirts whether you're actually going to reach those sections. Though I kind of still assume that one way or another we'll end up at some of these bigger obvious locations. But I don't know if we're going to end up on this separate island. We are still doing perfectly fine with the upgrade points, and the stories seem to be about 30 minutes long for each mission in the main mission, and then there's usually another 30 minutes of distraction stuff that you run into in between one mission and the other. Side missions probably will be the same number as regular missions. And then runs. As far as runs we've done, I guess we haven't done any in this region. Or we just haven't done whatever they're talking about. It says you can replay missions to find hidden content you haven't discovered yet. Replaying a mission will keep you your current progress. And then intel. I wouldn't be surprised if we have only half of the recordings and half of the intel by the time we finish the main story. Because what we're not really seeing here is we're not really seeing a situation where the game is telling us a lot per cutscene, per mission. Nobody really knows a lot. Things are happening, but we don't really know why things are happening. It was a very, frankly, unimpactful act of terrorism that happened there, in the sense that we didn't know anybody in that mall. We don't know if Faith personally cares about anybody in that mall. Like, there was really no setup there, no expectation. It would have made a lot more sense if Plastic had a habit of being in the mall, if that was where her sanctuary was, or if she was just standing there waving at you, saying, come this way, quick. Or if Icarus was standing there waving at you, come this way, quick. That would have been much more impactful to have at least one character. Even Nomad could have been standing there. But since we have no idea who was there, we don't know if any runners at all were even in the mall. So, yeah, there should have been that immediate revelation. But it didn't happen. And on the other hand, we also didn't see Kruger immediately claim that that Faith was part of Black November and that she did the blowing up of the mall. Which would have been impactful, certainly, to the story. Also, as if she was framed, and we may get to something like that. It's just too slow. Anyways, another recording. No frame hitches this hour or anything like that. Everything seems to be going well. Although my gameplay and parkouring is still pretty pathetic. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.